Hello everyone, and welcome once again to the vast and ever-foreboding comic book vault. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Dan.
Dan has joined me once again to jump into the foray of recent underground comicdom, and today we're going to be talking about the first story arc in Manos' Red Knight. Now, I have reviewed the I've reviewed the first two issues on other shows. I haven't talked about the third issue at all yet, and thought that I would just go through the whole finished story arc now. And Dan just got it and just read it.
I did. I thought it was really interesting the way he contrasted the way the characters portrayed in the world that he's set in. I really enjoyed that because the character seems almost naive to the fact that everyone else in his world is so cynical. And the tagline he has for the book, like the last optimistic man in a cynical world, that really is kind of the driving thing of the book. And I really found that to be an interesting juxtaposition. He's so wet behind the ears and so positive about everything when everyone else is all kind of like downtrodden and negative about things, and I really liked that contrast. And he's a guy you can root for, you know?
Yeah, and I like that he has a background that makes sense for all that.
Yeah, exactly.
Where, I mean, I really dig the idea of the kid who grew up wishing he had superpowers and never thought that it would happen, and then suddenly one day it happens.
Yeah, it's cool. When I was reading the origin and how it's tied in, I don't want to spoil how it happens, but we should probably make this non-spoiler for the most part. Yeah, I don't want to spoil anything for people because it kind of the way it's set up, especially in the third issue, there's a lot of revelations and it kind of weaves in and out of the story. But do you have any idea if the origin was tied into real events in his city? Because the event that it was kind of tied into with the kids, I wasn't really sure if that was real or not. You know, I wish I had done some research on that or talked to him and asked him about that, because now that you mention it, I remember wondering about that while I was reading it. Yeah. And it was clear that there were a lot of references to probably real-life things with that city, and I really dug that. Yeah, it felt really authentic to me, you know, the way the city was portrayed in the book. He's writing what he knows. That's always a good idea. Yeah, exactly. It was kind of like reading the old Marvel books and how they knew New York that well, you know, in the early days. Good point. Yeah, it's a lot like that. Yeah. I never realized that Norfolk was that big. Me either. Like, I thought it was kind of a smaller kind of city, and it seems like it's bigger than I ever realized. Yeah, me too. I had never heard of the city before. I subscribed to Manos, and then I was reading the book, and even then I didn't even realize it was that big, which I thought was really cool. And I like that he kind of acknowledged in the book that it's kind of a smaller city, and he set it up as kind of like a place where superheroes aren't usually. It's kind of like a place where like people drift through and stuff. I thought that was a really interesting aspect to kind of the personality of the city that's different and unique to other cities that have been in superhero comics before. You know, usually they're all in one place, sticking there, and that's their home base. Here, it's different than that. I thought that was interesting. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And you don't usually see that. I mean, like, sometimes you'll get, especially with DC, you'll get like a city that's kind of owned by a superhero. Yeah, exactly. But I liked like you said, how this is like they sort of come in and out, and it being the kind of city that it is, where it's like a port city. That made a lot of sense. Yeah. And I found it kind of clever, really. Yeah, I agree with you. And I kind of liked how he portrayed it as sort of the drifter city, like we said before, and it's kind of a power struggle between the Red Knight and the villains to take over and be an established thing in this city. Yeah, because the villains have the same thing. Yeah, exactly. Where they're all coming in and out too. There's not an established like drug running thing going on. Right. And so you've got these villains that come in, and they've got the drugs that can turn people into can give people superpowers, and but they're not like well established yet, and then it made a lot of sense, because it was like, well, why isn't there somebody established yet? There's no superheroes to fight us, you know. Nobody cares enough about this city to stop us. I really liked that too. This kind of it seemed like in the background there was this idea that nobody gives a crap. Yeah, exactly. I kind of picked up on that too when he had the idea in the book of the government-sponsored superheroes, and how when certain characters in the book get government sponsorship, they're kind of taken out of the city and they don't get to have the same kind of effect in the city that the Red Knight has, being an outlaw and being outside of the law and doing his own thing, and they don't seem as effective as a guy like the Red Knight, who's kind of has pure intentions still and hasn't been touched by the government really.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they become corporate.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was a good idea. And we've had that in other comics before, but I thought he did it slightly differently than I'd seen it.
Yeah, I mean that was a really good point you made. Them going corporate, and I don't know if I'm digging too deep here, but that made me think of corporately owned characters and superheroes as opposed to independent ones.
Hmm.
I don't know if that was intentional or not, but that's what it made me think of.
I was thinking it too. The overarching story, I felt I will give it this criticism. I felt like as it went along, it got less and less rocky.
What do you mean by rocky?
Well, I think that once I knew where everything was going. And I guess I say this a lot with arcs sometimes, but I think that once I realized where he was going with it by the end and where all the characters were going to wind up, and especially once Red Knight and the Martha characters started getting a lot of dialogue together, I really appreciated the first two issues a lot more. I felt like I really needed the third issue to really appreciate everything that was going on in the first two. I mean, I liked them when I read them, but I liked them a lot more once I had the definitive ending for this.
That's really interesting because I had a different experience than you because I read them all at once in one sitting.
Right.
So I didn't necessarily have that. But
yeah, I mean, I read them over months. He's been
exactly.
A couple 3 months. Yeah.
So, I mean, when I read them all at once, they read really well as an arc. But
so you thought it was pretty cohesive.
Yeah, as an arc, but I didn't read them as necessarily standalone month by month things. So. I mean, maybe
I also just thought that just generically that the writing continued to improve and improve. Not that it was bad, just that I bought the exchanges a lot more by the third issue.
Yeah.
I think that as he's writing these, he's getting more and more familiar with the characters, just like with anything. And their voices seem to be becoming more definitive as it continues on. I felt like he had much more of a real voice for both Red Knight and for Martha in that third issue than he did in either of the previous ones.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that's very true of not only Justin, but I think J.C. Grande too. Both of them improved as it went on. I noticed from issue 1 to 2 to 3, the art and the writing just got much better. Like you said, not that it was bad, but especially the artwork in the third issue I enjoyed quite a bit more than the other two. Not that I didn't like it in there, but I especially liked the dotted. You mentioned this before to me, and I had no idea what you were talking about.
You have to see it before you know what I'm talking about when I say dotted textures.
Right, exactly. But the dotted textures really helped me kind of distinguish what I was looking at in a lot of scenes, because I have to admit, during some of the fight scenes in the first issue, I got a little bit lost until I really looked at the panel. It wasn't inherently apparent when I would first look at it what exactly was going on. I would really have to look. But just because it wasn't colored, which, coloring's expensive, I understand that. I'm not criticizing for not being colored, but the dotting really helped me. I don't know if I was the only one.
No, you're absolutely not. And I talked to Justin just after 3 came. Actually, I think he showed me a little bit of the panel work just before it got put out, and I praised it heavily for having those textures, because I think that black and white comic art is an art form all by itself. I think that when you're doing black and white and it's intended to be that way, you've got to make the reader not think about the lack of color.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's a difficult thing to do, and I think that there's a lot of different ways to go about it, and I think that he was experimenting with that all the way up through 3. Having said that, I hope Grande stays with that style and doesn't deviate from it at all from now on. And I don't know how much longer he's going to be on the book. I'm pretty sure he's drawing 4. Don't quote me on that, but I think Manos told me that he's at least doing 4. But I mean, if he keeps on this book, I want to see that dotted texture style stick around, because with the first 2, I had the same experience that you did, and I found myself in places thinking, wow, I wish there was some color. 3, I never thought that. It felt like it's black and white. It's intended to be black and white. That's the kind of comic book you're reading.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd be curious to know if Grande is an artist that started out as with color in mind and then just didn't get the opportunity to color his stuff in this book.
Yeah, I don't know much about his background. I know he's done a little bit for Image. I don't know exactly what.
Oh, okay.
I know he drew something over there, and Image has both.
Okay.
But they have a lot more color than they have black and white. So it's very light. But I don't know. I'm just saying that it's very probable that he's used to having his work colored.
Yeah, I mean the covers look amazing. Like especially
Yes.
the first one. I love the first cover.
I was blown away by the third cover.
I love that one too.
I think it's very epic looking. Let's talk a little bit about some of the supporting characters. I found myself really liking the is it his uncle?
Yes.
I like that character a lot, and I like the kind of blue collar tech that we've got.
Yeah, me too.
It's kind of fun. it's just a van. Don't call it the Red Knight Mobile. It's a van.
Yeah, I kind of got this like this funny vibe from him, like he was like Red Knight's microchip, but like you said, really blue collar, which was really amusing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's great, and you need that kind of character. You know, you gotta have somebody who knows the secret identity. I mean, he's got his two kind of sidekicks that he's running around with, but you get the sense that he's going to be kind of a loner after this.
Yeah, exactly. Except for the Martha character.
Except for the Martha character,
Yeah.
right? But I mean, like you could argue that she serves the same purpose that Commissioner Gordon does in Batman.
Right, exactly.
That she's very much that kind of character.
Yeah. And I liked that. She was a really well written female character to me. I really thought she was really engaging, and she wasn't one of those female characters where she was in your face about how much of a competent woman she was, because sometimes they get a little bit too in your face with that, and I think
That's a great
Justin handled it really tastefully here, where she was a strong woman, but that was it. She wasn't trying to overcompensate for anything.
What did you how did you feel about the sidekick characters, the nonstop and Fireball characters?
I liked that. If I remember correctly, Fireball was the girl that he knew in his childhood, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
If we're wrong about that, sorry.
Yeah, but if that's the case, I really liked that, and I'd actually like to see more of, if I don't know if he has any plans to do this, but their relationship and how it went, because I'm really curious about that, because they don't seem to be together in the present, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
How that romance soured,
Yeah, there's obviously a giant gap where he's got a lot of story he can fill in, and I'm pretty sure he's planning on going into depth with all that.
Yeah. I mean, I was really interested in that because...
I was too.
Yeah, it seemed to be the opening scene in the book I really kind of liked, because it was sort of like... The girl was sort of a representation of the cynical worldview that everyone in this book seems to have besides Todd, and Todd is, himself. And then they kind of come together in that scene where they embrace, and it's like them melding, and then Todd's in that world in the future as a superhero. It's kind of like the scenes kind of parallel. I really liked that. That was cool to me.
Yeah, there are moments that I feel like Todd, and I'm not just saying this because of what we're doing on Geekvolution this month. I was thinking this before, but I feel like there are moments that Todd is kind of channeling the Tick a little bit. Especially when he's like, "Hey, that guy would make a great arch nemesis."
Yeah.
Where he clearly is not thinking about consequences or anything. He just wants to do this, and it's like. But what I like about him, as opposed to more of a parody character, which he's definitely not a parody character.
Right.
What I like about him as opposed to that is that he also seems aware of. Consequences to a point. He's just ignoring it. He wants the world to be a comic book world. He doesn't want it to be to be what it is.
Right, exactly.
And he's trying to force the world to be what he wants it to be.
Yeah, and it's going to be really interesting to see in future stories, because obviously he's with the job that he's doing and the kind of world he lives in, he's not going to be able to live in that world forever.
But what's really interesting is that at the same time in that third issue, again without giving too much away, it seems like he's kind of finagled it to where he sort of can, at least for a while.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Where he really has forced the system to work for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is cool.
Somewhat unintentionally, but
it's kind of cool how haphazardly everything comes together for him. I really liked that.
Yeah, I think so too. Not that he's not a proactive character.
Oh, definitely. I mean, he's definitely going out there and trying, to make a difference.
Do you like the villains?
Yes, I did like the mobster characters. They were cool, and I like the mystery of the doctor that's tied into the origin.
Yeah, which we didn't get a lot about yet.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Especially, I want to know, what happened with him. Why he did the thing that he did. Because it's honestly kind of creepy. Why. I'm gonna be interested to see what this guy's like. Basically, is what I'm saying.
It's clear to me that Justin's one of, if not his favorite character to write, seems to be Overkill.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
He seems to just freaking love to give that guy dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I liked how he played around a little bit with physics, where he's like with that stretching character.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting too.
And where Overkill's like, you never really thought about it like this, did you?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
and you're screwed.
Yeah. Yeah, the villains, especially those Overkill and I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Is it Brick or is it somebody else we're thinking of?
The one that he has the electric powers. He can like drink. Surge, is that his name?
Surge. Yeah, Surge. That's
Surge.
it. I
okay.
couldn't remember.
Those
my favorite soft drink from the late 90s. Unfortunately, stopped making.
Yeah, those two together, I think, are hysterical. The dialogue that they have with people, just seeing them play off of people is funny. The way they are just so blunt about everything. Well,
do you have anywhere else to go?
No, not really. I just want to encourage everyone to check this out because it's the first independent comic book really that I've ever read. Like the indie comics I read indie comics, but they're all licensed books, so I don't know if you can count that. So,
well,
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with you. I had the same thing where I'm like, well, I read Star Trek and Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I read Turtles, but
Turtles. But IDW is getting so mainstream, it's almost hard to call that indie anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean,
it's getting harder. It's indie in the same vein that Dark Horse is indie. I mean,
yeah. In any case, this is the most indie thing I've ever read, and I really enjoyed this. This was great. I'm definitely gonna pick up the future issues. I enjoyed it, and I want to see where the story goes.
Well, Manos is taking a break from this for a while. He's going to bring it back in a few months, and I don't know if he's got really a date slated for when 4 is going to come out. But he's taking a short break, but he does have a timetable for it, and he is planning, I think, in his next arc to do some of the origin stuff that you're talking about. So look forward to that. At least that's the last thing he said to me. So if that changes, it's not my fault. But that's what he said to me. So everybody look forward to that. You can get it through Manos. I'll put the link in the description for how you can get it. They're $2.99 a piece, regular comic book price, and so just $9 for the first set. He'll sell it to you for $11, just a couple bucks to ship it, and he'll sign all 3 of them for you. So
yeah, it's a good deal.
Well, everybody, thanks as always for listening to the Comic Book Vault. Dan, thanks for joining me.
Oh, no problem. As always, it's a pleasure.
Everybody, remember that the Comic Book Vault is a vast and wondrous wonderland of comic books that you can both donate things to and purchase things from. Go to wearegeeksnotnerds.com, click on the Comic Book Vault, see what we've got for sale. I actually just finished putting a whole bunch of stuff on eBay just before we got on this call. So go see what we've got now. Lots of fun stuff. And also, you can donate things to our P.O. Box. If there's anything you want to see me and Dan, or me and Vince, or me by myself, or me and some other random people review. That's Geekvolution, P.O. Box 14183, Lenexa, Kansas 66285. Thanks as always for watching. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Dan.
See you next time.